The orbital defense station Artemis 7 was having another quiet day when humanity's destiny changed forever. Lieutenant Sarah Chen was halfway through her coffee when the anomaly alerts lit up her console like a Christmas tree. A massive gravitational distortion had appeared just beyond lunar orbit, far larger than anything humanity had ever detected. Control, this is Artemis 7. We're tracking multiple objects emerging from what appears to be. Well, I'm not entirely sure what we're looking at, Sarah reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. The objects that emerged from the distortion weren't the sleek, otherworldly vessels of humanity's imagination. They were battered, scarred behemoths, their hulls bearing the marks of recent combat. 15 ships in total, each easily dwarfing the largest vessels humanity had ever constructed. Within hours, the world's militaries were on high alert. But the first message from the alien fleet wasn't a demand or a threat. It was a plea for help. People of Earth, the transmission began, translated through their advanced systems into every major language simultaneously. We are the Varine. We come seeking sanctuary, and we bring a warning. The Varine were a species that had once spanned thousands of star systems. Now, these 15 ships carried all that remained of their civilization. They spoke of an implacable enemy, the Void Hegemony, a collective of species that consumed rather than created, destroying everything in their path that refused to submit to their rule. What followed was perhaps the most remarkable period in human history. Rather than panic or respond with fear, humanity's leaders made a decision that would echo through the ages. Earth opened its arms to the refugees, offering them a home among the scattered islands of the Pacific, where their aquatic nature would be most comfortable. The Varine were master engineers, their technology centuries ahead of humanity's best achievements. But they found themselves equally fascinated by human ingenuity. Where the Varine had pursued perfection through careful iteration, humans embraced chaos, creating solutions that were often inelegant but brilliantly effective. "You build like children playing with blocks," remarked Sentinel Cray, the Varine's chief engineer, watching humans modify Varine technology. But somehow, the tower still stands, and sometimes it stands stronger than our carefully calculated structures. The integration wasn't without its challenges. Conservative factions on Earth protested the sharing of resources with aliens. Some Varines struggled to understand humanity's seemingly irrational approaches to problem-solving. But as months passed, both species found their strengths complemented each other in unexpected ways. Then came the day when long-range sensors, enhanced by Varine technology, detected the first scout ships of the Void Hegemony. They were still years away at conventional speeds, but their arrival was inevitable. The question was no longer if Earth would face this threat, but when. Humanity's response surprised even the Varine. Instead of fear, there was determination. Instead of resignation, there was innovation. In labs and workshops across the planet, humans began adapting Varine technology in ways its original creators had never imagined. "We've spent centuries running," Sentinel Cray told the United Earth Council. "We perfected our ships, our weapons, our shields, and still we lost. Perhaps what we needed wasn't perfection. Perhaps what we needed was humanity's beautiful chaos." The next 3 years saw the greatest technological leap in human history. Varine precision merged with human creativity, producing hybrid technologies that were neither purely human nor purely Varine. Solar system defense platforms were constructed, ships were built, and strategies were developed that combined Varine's analytical approach with humanity's unconventional thinking. But more importantly, something else was happening. The Varine, who had lost hope after centuries of defeat, were beginning to see possibility again through human eyes. And humanity, faced with an existential threat, was uniting in ways previously thought impossible. As the first year drew to a close, Sarah Chen, now commander of the newly commissioned Earth Varine Defense Fleet, stood on the observation deck of Artemis 7, watching the combined fleet exercises. Human ships, angular and aggressive, flew in formation with the organic curves of Varine vessels. They thought they were coming here seeking refuge. she remarked to Cray, who stood beside her. Instead, they may have found something far more valuable. What would that be, Commander? The Varine asked. Sarah smiled, watching the human pilot execute a maneuver that should have been impossible, even with Varine technology. A reason to stop running. A reason to fight back. The battle for Earth's future was approaching. But for the first time in centuries, the Varine felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope. And humanity was about to show the galaxy why you should never underestimate a species that had turned their own chaos into strength. In the depths of the Mojave Desert, Project Synthesis was changing the course of human history. What had once been a barren military testing ground was now home to the largest collaborative research facility ever built. Here, beneath hardened bunkers and quantum shielding, humanity and the Varine worked to prepare for the coming storm. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood before a holographic display, watching as the simulation ran through another iteration of his latest theory. Beside him, his Varine counterpart, science elder Naira, observed with an expression that humans had learned to recognize as concerned fascination. You want to intentionally create a controlled quantum cascade. Naira's translucent fins rippled with agitation. Marcus, that's precisely what our safety protocols are designed to prevent. Exactly, Marcus grinned, manipulating the hologram with practiced gestures. Your protocols prevent it because it's dangerous. But what if the danger is exactly what we need? This was the heart of Project Synthesis, the merging of Varine precision with human audacity. While the Varine had spent centuries perfecting safe, controlled applications of their technology, humans looked at the same principles and asked, but what if we did it wrong on purpose? The breakthrough came 3 months later, by deliberately inducing quantum instabilities, something the Varine had always avoided. Human scientists discovered they could create weapons that bypassed traditional shields. The Void Hegemony's defenses had been designed to counter Varine technology. They weren't prepared for weapons that shouldn't work at all. But knowledge, as humanity had learned countless times before, often came with a price. The first warning came from a Varine long-range sensing array in the Kuiper Belt. A quantum pulse, subtle but distinct, echoed back from a distant point in space. Someone had detected their experiments, and that someone was responding. They know we're here, Sentinel Cray announced to the Earth Defense Council. The quantum signature of our experiments. It's like we've been shining a beacon into space. The council chamber erupted into argument. Some advocated immediately ceasing all research. Others pushed for accelerating it. The Void Hegemony was coming. The only question was whether they'd be ready. Commander Sarah Chen, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. How long do we have? At their fastest recorded speed, 8 months. Cray's fins drooped. A gesture of resignation. We thought we had years. Sarah stood, her presence commanding attention. Then we have 8 months to make sure they regret finding us. What followed was a period of activity unprecedented in human history. The entire solar system became a fortress in construction. Asteroid bases, orbital platforms, defensive grids. Humanity took the Varine's elegant designs and turned them into weapons of war. But it was in the labs of Project Synthesis that the real race was taking place. Dr. Rodriguez and his team worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of physics in ways that made even the Varine uncomfortable. Your species, Naira observed one night, watching Marcus work, you don't just push boundaries. You seem almost eager to break them. Marcus paused, considering her words. Maybe that's because we know something you've forgotten, Naira. Sometimes the only way forward is through the break. The price of their knowledge became clear 6 months into their preparation. A Void Hegemony scout ship appeared at the edge of the solar system, its presence a dark promise of what was to come. Earth's combined fleet engaged it immediately. The battle was brief but telling. The scouts' advanced shields were useless against humanity's impossible weapons, but as the ship died, it transmitted a signal that contained detailed scans of Earth's defenses. In the aftermath, as analysts pored over the data they'd gathered from the encounter, A chilling realization set in. The Void hegemony hadn't just discovered Earth by accident. They'd been watching, learning, adapting. The knowledge exchange between humans and Vereen had given Earth advanced technology, but it had also made them a target. In the command center of Artemis 7, now expanded into a major defense platform, Sarah Chen studied the tactical displays with Cray. "They'll come in force now," the Vereen Sentinel stated. Sarah nodded, but there was a glint in her eye that Cray had learned to recognize. The look humans got when they were about to do something either brilliant or insane. Often both. "Good," she said, surprising him. "Let them come, because while they've been watching us, learning about our defenses, they've missed something crucial." "What's that?" "We haven't shown them everything." She brought up a secure channel to Project Synthesis. "Dr. Rodriguez, remember that insane idea you had last month? The one even the Vereen said was impossible. How close are you to making it work?" Marcus's voice came back, tired but excited. "Commander, I think you're going to want to see this." The price of knowledge had made Earth a target, but it had also given humanity something the Void hegemony couldn't understand. The confidence that came from knowing they could do the impossible. The real question was whether it would be enough when the full might of the hegemony arrived. They came at dawn, Earth time. The Void hegemony's fleet emerged from quantum space in a display that turned the night sky into day. 5,000 ships, their hulls black as space itself, arranged in perfect geometric formations. It was a sight designed to inspire terror. The combined might of a dozen conquered civilizations, brought to bear against a single world that dared to resist. In Artemis 7's command center, Commander Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with an unsettling calm. "Right on schedule," she murmured, then opened a channel to all Earth Vereen Defense Forces. "All units, Operation Chaos is now in effect. You know your positions. Good hunting." The hegemony's first broadcast was predictably arrogant. "Primitive world, you harbor enemies of the Void. Surrender the Vereen, submit to integration, and you may be spared. You have 1 hour to comply." Earth's response came not in words, but in action. As the hegemony fleet approached Mars orbit, they encountered their first surprise. The planet's entire surface appeared to ripple, then shatter. What they had assumed was Mars was actually a massive shell of networked satellites, disguised by Project Synthesis's quantum mimicry technology. Thousands of missiles erupted from the false Mars, their quantum-unstable warheads playing havoc with hegemony shields. The perfect formations broke apart as ships took evasive action, exactly as planned. "They're reacting exactly like you said they would," Sentinel Cray observed, watching the hegemony fleet's disciplined response to the chaos, breaking into smaller defensive formations. Sarah nodded. "Predictable. When faced with chaos, they seek order. That's why they'll lose." She keyed her comm. "Dr. Rodriguez, you're up." In the asteroid belt, Marcus and his team activated their greatest gamble. The result of months of impossible research, they had turned the entire asteroid belt into a quantum entanglement web. As the signal went out, thousands of asteroids began to move, but not in normal space. They shifted through quantum states, appearing and disappearing, each transition releasing devastating bursts of energy. The hegemony fleet, designed to fight conventional battles in conventional space, found themselves in an environment that defied their tactical doctrine. Their perfect formations became a liability as quantum-shifted asteroids appeared inside their defensive screens. But the hegemony hadn't conquered 1,000 worlds by being unprepared. From their flagship emerged waves of fighters unlike anything Earth had seen. Biomechanical constructs that adapted to damage, learning, and evolving mid-battle. "This is Task Force Prometheus," a voice crackled over the comm. "We're getting torn apart in Sector 7. These things, they're learning our tactics faster than we can execute them." Sarah's response was immediate. "Switch to Protocol 0. All units, randomize your combat algorithms. Full chaos protocols in effect." This was humanity's true advantage, their ability to embrace disorder. While Varine ships fought with precision and hegemony forces adapted through logic, human pilots began fighting with intentional unpredictability. Each ship's combat computer was programmed to introduce random variables into every maneuver, making their actions impossible to predict or counter. The battle raged across the solar system. Earth's orbital defense platforms unleashed weapons that violated the laws of physics. Varine ships, guided by human tactical advisors, executed maneuvers their designers had never intended. And through it all, the quantum-shifted asteroids continued their deadly dance. But the hegemony's numbers were telling. For every ship they lost, they could sacrifice 10 more. Earth's defenses, while effective, were being overwhelmed by sheer volume of fire. "We're losing the outer defense ring," Cray reported, his usual calm cracking. "They're adapting to the quantum weapons. Another hour, and they'll have a clear path to Earth." Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing. The hegemony had adapted to their quantum weapons, yes, but in doing so, they'd had to modify their shields. And in those modifications, Dr. Rodriguez, she called, what would happen if we reversed the quantum polarity of the entire asteroid field? All at once, there was a long pause. That would be catastrophic, Commander. The energy release alone would. Would it work? Another pause. Yes, but we'd lose most of our own fleet too. Anyone too close to the reaction zone would be. Do it. Sarah opened a general channel. All Earth Varine forces, emergency recall. Fall back to the inner defense line. You have 5 minutes. As ships desperately burned for safety, the hegemony pressed their advantage, pushing deeper into the solar system. They didn't realize they were being drawn into a trap until it was too late. The quantum reversal, when it came, turned space itself into a weapon. The countless asteroids, all quantum entangled, reversed their states simultaneously. The energy release created a cascading wave of destruction that ignored conventional shields and armor. When the quantum storm cleared, the mighty hegemony fleet was in ruins. But nearly a third of Earth's forces were gone too, caught in the backlash, or sacrificing themselves to ensure the enemy's destruction. In the aftermath, as damage reports flooded in, Cray turned to Sarah. That was either brilliant or insane. With humans, she replied, watching the tactical display update with their losses. It's usually both. She paused, then added softly, but this isn't over. We hurt them, but the hegemony still controls most of the galaxy. They'll be back, and next time, they'll be ready for our tricks. Then what do we do? Sarah's expression hardened. We take the fight to them. It's time for Operation Starfall. The hegemony never expected their prey to hunt them. In the 3 months following the Battle of Sol, humanity and the Varine had worked tirelessly. The shipyards of Earth and the asteroid belt produced vessels that were neither human nor Varine in design, but something entirely new. Ships that embraced chaos as a weapon. Dr. Rodriguez stood in Project Synthesis's main lab, presenting his latest creation to the Joint Military Council. We call it the Chaos Drive. He explained, gesturing to the swirling quantum matrix displayed in the hologram. It doesn't just move through space, it breaks it. The demonstration that followed left even the Varine speechless. The test ship didn't just disappear. It shattered reality around itself, leaving a wake of quantum distortions that would make pursuit impossible. It was beautiful, dangerous, and completely insane. Exactly what humanity had become known for. How many ships can we equip? Commander Chen asked, already seeing the tactical possibilities. We have enough quantum cores for 30 vessels, Marcus replied. But each one is essentially a controlled catastrophe waiting to happen. One wrong calculation. When do we start? The offensive began where no one expected it. Simultaneously at 12 different hegemony strongholds, the new Earth Varine ships, dubbed nightmares by their crews, simply appeared inside defensive perimeters, their quantum wakes destroying any ships caught in them. The hegemony's response was predictable. They tried to adapt, to analyze, to understand. But humanity had learned from their previous encounter. Each nightmare operated on different principles, their quantum matrices intentionally unstable and unique. On the bridge of the flagship Prometheus, Sarah Chen watched as another hegemony fortress fell. Status of the quantum net. Her tactical officer, a young lieutenant named James Patel, grinned. "The distortions are spreading exactly as planned, Commander. Their faster-than-light communications are in chaos. Each sector thinks it's facing a different threat." This was the true genius of Operation Starfall. It wasn't just about destroying hegemony assets. It was about shattering their ability to coordinate. Each quantum wake left behind by the nightmare ships created zones where conventional physics became unreliable. The hegemony's carefully maintained order was being replaced by entropy. But the enemy was far from defeated. As reports came in from across the campaign, it became clear. The next phase of Operation Starfall was even bolder. Instead of attacking military targets, the nightmares began appearing in the heart of hegemony industrial systems. Not to destroy, but to broadcast. People of the hegemony, the message went out, in every language of every conquered species. You've been told that order is strength, that chaos must be controlled. Look now at your masters, unable to protect you from what they don't understand. Look at their perfect system crumbling. The effect was electric. Throughout hegemony space, subjected populations began to rebel. The seeds of chaos, planted by humanity's quantum incursions, bloomed into full revolution. Systems that had been under hegemony control for centuries declared independence. But the hegemony's response was brutal. Entire worlds were quarantined, cut off from all contact. Ships that had once been used for control were now employed for punishment. "They're killing their own people," Cray reported, his fins dark with distress. "Millions are dying in these purges." Sarah's face hardened. "Then we move to the final phase. Signal all nightmare ships. Execute Protocol Omega." What followed would be remembered in galactic history as the Week of Broken Skies. Every nightmare ship, acting in concert, activated their chaos drives at full power. The quantum disruption spread like a wave across hegemony space, destroying not ships or stations, but the very foundations of their control. Communications failed. Navigation became impossible. The carefully maintained order of the hegemony shattered, leaving each system to fend for itself. In the chaos that followed, centuries of oppression began to unravel. But victory came at a terrible price. The quantum disruption was more powerful than anyone had predicted. Entire regions of space became navigational hazards, riddled with areas where physics itself had been damaged. As the Prometheus limped back to Earth, Sarah stood at her viewport, watching the quantum storms they'd created ripple across space. "We won," she said quietly to Cray. "But at what cost?" The Verine Sentinel was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps," he finally replied. "That is the price of fighting chaos with chaos. The question now is, what do we build in the aftermath?" Sarah turned from the viewport, her expression determined. "Something new. Something that embraces both order and chaos. But first, we have to finish this. The hegemony's leadership is still out there, gathering what forces remain loyal to them. They'll make one final stand. And we'll be ready." Cray nodded. "Humanity has taught us that much, at least. Sometimes, to build something new, you have to let the old order burn." The heart of the hegemony lay broken, but its will remained. In the Carina Nebula, amid clouds of stellar dust and newborn stars, the remaining hegemony forces had gathered for their last stand. 500 capital ships, the last vestiges of their once mighty empire, surrounded a massive structure that defied conventional physics. The Nexus. "That's where they've been hiding all along," Sarah Chen murmured, studying the sensor readings aboard the Prometheus. "Not just their leadership, their source of power." The Nexus was a marvel of engineering, a construct that existed partially in quantum space. For centuries, it had been the source of the hegemony's technological superiority, allowing them to impose their version of order across the galaxy. Now it would be their final fortress. Dr. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the quantum comm. The readings are off the scale, Commander. The Nexus, it's not just controlling quantum space, it's reshaping it. Every law of physics we thought we understood is being rewritten inside that structure. The combined fleet of Earth, the Vereen, and liberated worlds gathered at the edge of the nebula. 300 ships against 500, but numbers had never been the true measure of this war. All ships, this is Commander Chen. Sarah's voice carried across the fleet. What we face today isn't just an enemy fleet. It's an idea. The idea that order must be imposed, that chaos must be controlled, that diversity must be suppressed. Today, we prove them wrong. The battle began not with a charge, but with silence. The nightmare ships, now evolved beyond their original design, slipped through quantum space, their wake patterns carefully calculated to create a web of distortion around the hegemony fleet. But the enemy was ready. The Nexus pulsed, and reality stabilized around their ships. Humanity's quantum tricks, which had won them the galaxy, seemed powerless here. They've learned, Cray observed grimly. They've adapted their entire defensive strategy around negating our advantages. Sarah smiled, and there was something in that smile that made even the Vereen Sentinel uneasy. Exactly as we planned. Dr. Rodriguez, initiate Protocol Genesis. What happened next would be debated by physicists for centuries to come. Every nightmare ship, acting in perfect coordination, deactivated their quantum drives simultaneously. The sudden absence of chaos, in a space so saturated with quantum energy, created a vacuum effect. The Nexus, designed to impose order on chaos, found itself trying to impose order on nothing. The feedback loop was catastrophic. All ships, full advance. Sarah's order cut through the chaos. Strike now, while they're blind. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human ingenuity, Vereen precision, and the desperate courage of the liberated worlds combined into a force that couldn't be calculated or predicted. Ships fought in three-dimensional space, and through quantum dimensions, reality itself becoming a weapon. In the heart of the Nexus, the hegemony leadership watched their perfect order crumble. Their response was predictable. They attempted to impose even greater control, channeling more power through the Nexus. Commander, Marcus's voice was urgent. The Nexus is going critical. The energy readings, if it collapses, it'll take half the nebula with it. Sarah's response was immediate. All ships, fall back to safe distance. Prometheus will handle this. Sarah, Cray's voice was soft. The Prometheus won't survive a close-range quantum collapse. No, she agreed. But sometimes, the only way forward is through the break. Humanity taught you that, remember? Before anyone could object, the Prometheus dove toward the Nexus, its quantum drive spinning up to maximum power. But instead of attacking, it began broadcasting on all frequencies. People of the hegemony, Sarah's voice reached every ship in the nebula. Look at what your quest for perfect order has brought you. Look at the price of denying the fundamental truth of existence, that chaos and order are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. The Prometheus spiraled closer to the Nexus, its hull beginning to break apart under the quantum stresses. But it wasn't attacking. It was offering a choice. Surrender, Sarah continued, not to us, but to the idea that there might be a better way. A way where order and chaos coexist, where diversity is strength, where different species can learn from each other instead of trying to control each other. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, nothing happened. Then, one by one, hegemony ships began powering down their weapons. The Nexus's energy reading stabilized, then began to decrease. In the end, it wasn't weapons or tactics that won the final battle. It was an idea. The idea that strength comes not from imposing order or embracing chaos, but from finding balance between the two. The aftermath brought changes no one had predicted. The Nexus, rather than being destroyed, was repurposed. Under joint human-marine supervision, it became a center of learning, where species from across the galaxy could share knowledge and culture freely. Years later, Sarah Chen stood in the observation dome of the transformed Nexus, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go freely through the nebula. "Did you know it would end this way?" Cray asked, standing beside her. "No," she admitted, "but I hoped it might. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to imagine something better, and then make it real." The legacy of the war wasn't just victory or defeat. It was a fundamental shift in how species across the galaxy viewed each other. Humanity had shown there was strength in chaos, wisdom in uncertainty, and power in accepting that sometimes the best order is one that allows for a little disorder. The stars stretched out before them, no longer a battlefield, but a frontier of endless possibilities. And in the quantum storms that still rippled through space, new patterns were forming, patterns that spoke of a future where chaos and order danced together in eternal balance.